Welcome. I call to order the Town Council regular session. The date is July 14th, 2014, and the time is 7:31. If we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sue, could we please have the roll call?
Council President Whaley,
Here.
Council Vice President McEntee,
Here.
Councilwoman Healy,
Here.
Councilman Donnelly,
Here?
Councilman O'Neill.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes of previous meetings. We have the work session of June 23rd, 2014.
I move approval of those minutes.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We also have the regular session of June 23rd, 2014.
I move approval of those minutes.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Would any council like anything removed from the consent agenda?
Hearing none, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Licenses tonight, the first one is a resolution granting a holiday sales license to AGT Food Mart, 3471 Kingston Road, West Kingston, Rhode Island. This application is by Sheng Shen, 228 Grinwood Drive, Wakefield, Rhode Island, and it's new, and it's continued from June 23rd. Is someone here that would like to come to the microphone? Are you Sheng Shen?
Yeah, I'm.
Welcome. Did I pronounce it okay?
Pardon?
Could you just state your name for the record? Are you Sheng Shen?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Chen. Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about AGT Market?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what the business, the hours of operation?
Yeah, this just for the convenience store. Yeah, including the gas station.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now I just rent the store for the convenience store. For the AGT Food Mart.
And will you be open 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday?
Yeah.
And opening, when do you open? Like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock?
Right now I open start at 8 a.m. to the 6 p.m.
8 to 6.
Yeah.
Good. Do we have questions here at the table? Jim?
Is the gas station, you're part of the gas station group, but they're open 24 hours, are they not?
Not for the 24 hour because gas station is not for me, but that's for my boss is John. Yeah, I just a manager for the gas station and rent the convenience store. So I just do the convenience store.
That's fine, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Other questions?
I move approval of new license A.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Good luck.
You have good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Second license on the agenda is a resolution granting a miscellaneous peddler's license to Orange Leaf Frozen Yogurt, 99 Fortin Road, Kingston, Rhode Island. Application by Darlene Spakowski, 48 Main Street, Ashaway, Rhode Island. And is anyone here to speak on behalf of Orange Leaf Frozen Yogurt? No, so we will continue that to the next meeting. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a communication. This is a communication dated July 9th, 2014 from Dorian Boardman, Chairwoman, providing the Conservation Commission's findings of their initial review. A potential ban on plastic shopping bags in South Kingston is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs. I'd just like to take a minute and thank the Conservation Commission for doing the work that we asked them to do, and they have made some recommendations, which I'm in full agreement. So I'm going to open it to any further discussion here at the table.
Well, can I ask a question?
Please
'Cause
do,
there
Meg.
were two things, because I was reading this over. Excuse me. They wanted to model Barrington's, what Barrington had proposed for theirs. I have not a problem with that. How, the other thing that I read here is they want to get public feedback and send this out. How do they anticipate sending out? Is it going to be questionnaires, phone calls?
Surveys.
And it does say phone calls also. to,
Surveys, phone calls,
Because I did read it, and all right.
yeah.
and a public informational hearing.
I think we need to get, and I think they covered it, Ella, as you said. They covered the fact that we need the businesses, the residents and the business owners to be involved, especially any business that uses plastic bags, and see how, what their take is on all of this. And, of course, we all have to be environmentally concerned and see what changes we can make. But I think this is a good start, that we get public input on this and find out where everybody stands.
So, Mike, with you probably had some work that, with Barrington. What did they do first? Did they do the surveys, phone calls, informational hearing? What did they do first?
Absolutely. It was a long, involved process. The main part of the process was reaching out to the business community. They reached out to the major supermarket. They reached out to like the pharmacies, the CVS, et cetera, because they knew they would be most impacted by it. And then they started going to the other vendors. And at least in Barrington, there was no resistance. I mean, Shaw's basically told them, whether you enact it or not, we're going to go to the paper only. And the others just sort of fell in line. We did have a lobbyist from Washington, D.C., who came up on behalf of the plastic bag industry and testified at a council meeting. But other than that, at least in Barrington, 95% or more were well in favor. But I do think the important thing, and you've mentioned it tonight, you're going to follow this, is doing the due diligence, talking to the businesses, getting their input, listening to what they have to say. I think that's critical, because you need that ownership and buy-in to make something like this work.
So is it best to do an informational hearing first and, get some of the businesses in the community in, or should there be, private conversations with the businesses first?
It's good to kickstart. A lot of times you can't even get the word out until you have some kind of initial meeting, so I do think it makes sense. I'm pretty sure that's the process they followed.
That's what I was thinking.
Then those who didn't come to that meeting, they started reaching out to. They just, they made it temporary at first. They wanted to see how it worked for a year. And the council just voted to make it permanent, and there was zero opposition.
Carol, yeah?
They suggest that they recommend that we establish a process, okay, for receiving community feedback. And the first thing they talk about is education on the topic, and development of a packet of information on the subject for review by town staff. So that would seem like the first step, get the informational packet. I don't know how.
Right. In
If
other
you look
words,
at their first step suggestion,
Sure.
that's what they're suggesting.
Before having any kind of meeting, you certainly want to get the educational segment of it down so that you have items to discuss and to distribute. And that informational packet contains things about plastic bags and how they don't disintegrate and they turn into tiny little dust particles that get ingested by fish. I mean, it's quite involved.
So where would we begin to get all of that information, Mike?
If they're not already putting it together, I know the Conservation Commission in Barrington would be happy to share all that information.
Oh, okay.
That would be great.
I'd love to see it go statewide.
I think that's the only thing that the Conservation Commission is asking now, is for the council to give them the go-ahead to put the information package together, so that then they could have a meaningful public informational meeting, and also be able to solicit comments and concerns from the business community itself. But based on the Barrington example. They wanted to be able to put the information package together so that people would have an opportunity to review the written materials as well as to talk intelligently on it.
That sounds great. Do we have like an estimated time frame? What are you thinking?
They haven't come up with one yet. I think what they're asking is if the council wants them to run with this, then they'll
Absolutely.
put that type of a schedule together for you.
Well, I'm ready to roll with
Yeah,
putting it in the
yeah.
air. Paul?
I think this is great, but oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, and then Meg.
Just a question now, if the state, say, would put in a plastic bag ban, does our ordinance and the state have to jibe together, or if one is, a little more, a little more broad-reaching than the other? I mean, does one supersede the other?
If the state were to adopt a plastic ban bag, a lot would depend on what's in the legislation. They might enable communities to adopt one, or if they were to say this bag ban is now enforced throughout the state law would trump theoretically,
Okay.
unless within that legislation there was some
Was
flexibility.
an out for the localities. Just a question, because I know there's been talk about that. So,
I think a bill was introduced in this last session, and it didn't,
didn't move, but that's usually the way
it begins that way, right?
begins that way, exactly.
Then Meg.
Very quick comment. I did read this through, and I was looking at the definitions, and number one was the one that first hit me. I'm a very big proponent of small business in our town. I think we need to work with the small businesses to, it's farmers markets, it's flea markets, it's restaurants. I think we really need to have good communication lines open with our small businesses here in town. Sometimes it's easy to have plastic bags, but I know a lot of these people are friendly to the ecosystem, but I think that's some place I would really like to concentrate some of my communications to, not just the big retail stores, because we have a lot of small businesses in town.
I think the big retail stores are more able to absorb a change as compared to a little mom and pop. So everybody's got to be included.
Oh, I'm not saying that they don't.
No,
I
no,
just
no,
think we
no.
need to, that's a viable, we got two big businesses in town. You got the hospital, you got URI. The rest of the businesses are relatively small. But if you're a retail customer in this town and you're a small business in this town, those are the people I think we really need to reach out to. That's just my personal opinion.
Check all the boxes.
Jim?
Yeah, these are all good points that are made just on my travels today, but I've certainly noticed over the last few years, you go to a Belmont market, and it's a tremendously high percentage of people that bring in their own bags. But you go to CVS or Benny's, zero. So you can really see how we need to really involve our
business.
smaller businesses. But anyway, somehow or another, I guess we learn. So it happened in Barrington, maybe it'll happen here.
Well, I'm excited about this initiative, and I really want to. I'm hoping that the student that brought it forward, it's been brought to this town council on, I think it's been twice now, but this Ula Kim Landa, student at Compass School, who started the ball rolling here the second time, so I'm hoping that she shows up at some point to have input. Carol, did you have a question?
I just had, Mike, I'm looking at the definitions and the restrictions on plastic checkout bags that that was supplied to us by the Conservation Commission. I assume maybe it came from you.
It did. I
But
mean,
number
obviously,
one,
it went through many different versions before it got to this point.
Number one, under the restrictions on plastic checkout bags, no retail sales establishment shall make available any plastic checkout bags at the point of sale, not including plastic barrier bags or double opening plastic bags. And I see you have the definitions above, but what is the difference when it comes to, there's got to be some explanation to why that
Right,
isn't
because
as
when you're in the
environmentally unsound.
When you're in a produce section of a supermarket, you have those small plastic
Yeah.
bags so that you can put your vegetables and fruit. Those are not banned. The intent here is simply to ban the bag that actually carries the groceries
bags.
out of the store,
Mm-hmm.
not those internal bags. I mean, they're very practical about this.
If you get chicken, you want to put it in a plastic bag.
And I've noticed, like at Belmont, they have some plastic bags that are recyclable. They're green now at the checkout. So I don't know where that falls in all of this, but they claim that that's better than the the previous
We'd
plastic
have-
bag.
We'd have to look at that, I
Yeah.
don't know. And the double opening bag, those are the bags with the openings at either end, like for laundry, you know, when you have a
Oh,
suit
okay.
clean.
Oh, yeah.
Shirt's clean.
That's what I
or
was
something.
saying. I didn't
I
get that,
see.
yeah. I was like-
No, again, and all of this was based on feedback, so that was the nice thing, and you need to do the
Nice.
same thing if you want to go in this
Mm-hmm.
direction. You need to get the feedback, because your community here, our community here, they have very different needs than
Right.
another community.
Okay.
Very good.
Any further discussion? We're ready for a motion.
So, all right, I move as far as communication A that we've received, 7A, sorry. We've received the communication from the chairman of the Conservation Commission. We've reviewed their findings, and I would move that we ask them to proceed with putting together the packet of information on the subject of plastic bag use for, the use of plastic shopping bags, excuse me, in South Kingstown. So that's the first thing that we want to start with, send it back to them to start with the educational packet of information.
Second.
Steve, did you have any further comments? No, I think that's what they're asking. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is comments from interested citizens. Before we do that, I just want to thank the Parks and Recreation Commission and Terry Murphy for a wonderful fireworks display. Just another kudos to the town of South Kingstown, so thank you. I also want to state that Ladies' Night on July 10th was absolutely, I think, one of the best. I think everybody, all the vendors was very pleased, and the businesses, and it was great to see not only men shopping on Main Street, but there was more men this year.
It was a lot of people, it was
Yeah,
nice.
It was great.
Very good.
With that said, any other comments from town council before I open up the microphone? Jim?
Yeah, a couple of things. On June 28th, I made my annual trip to the South Kingstown Town Hall Saturday for the Household Hazardous Waste Collection, and John Schock, Laura did a fabulous job there, putting everyone at ease, Clean Harbors, DEM. It's the easiest thing and the easiest way to dispose of hazardous waste. You don't get out of the car, no one looks inside your garbage. It's really a fabulous, fabulous job, well done. But Laura was there putting everyone at ease and moving traffic along, and she did a great job, so many thanks to her. And the other things, a couple other things over the last 2 or 3 weeks. You've probably seen an awful lot of young children with soccer shoes on and soccer socks on, and the New England Regional 2-year contract finished this a few weeks ago. 256 teams from West Virginia north throughout New England. Incredible success. The University of Rhode Island, the business that was throughout South County, even over in the Connecticut area. But what a great job that, and I have to really congratulate Larry Fish for putting this together years ago and helping win this award for URI in South Kingstown and South County. And then this past weekend, another 150 teams here with the Seaside Classic Soccer Tournament, which involves teams from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and another great success, 150 teams. And I gave Larry a call, and he wanted us to acknowledge Murray Gates, who's now running that. Larry handed that off. He and his wife handed it off after 15 years to Murray, and another success for our economy, for our community. A wonderful job. So there's some other things, I can't remember them all, but anyway, that's that.
Thank you.
The last thing that I wanted to comment on is had an informal meeting with Kenny Burke, president of the board of the Welcome House, and there is going to be a fundraiser. If people want to write the date down, it's going to be a plunge at Narragansett Beach on September 27th, 9 to 3, and it's going to be a fundraiser for the Welcome House. And I just want to let people know that on Church Street, In Wakefield here, there is a bike shop that the Welcome House is opening. It's a bay garage. I believe they have 30 bikes that they're redoing, and they're going to be giving those to many children in the community. They have a $5,000 grant to purchase helmets, and we're going to have a lot of youngsters that are surprised with some bicycles. And I believe that that bike shop is going to be run by Dan Dunn. So lots of good things and many new initiatives coming from the Welcome House. So kudos to Ken Burke and the staff and the board. Wonderful.
Ella, excuse me, are they taking contributions of bikes from folks? Are they buying new? What?
They have taken a lot of contributions. So if you do have a bike and you want to turn it in, they're redoing 30 bikes is what I hear that they're doing. And kids from, I think, Peaceville Elementary School and Wakefield Elementary School will be receiving some bikes. So it's absolutely fabulous for this community.
Okay, thank you.
With that said, I'm going to open up the microphone. If anybody would like to come and bring a comment, any interested citizens, please come forward now. Seeing none, I'm going to go on to Town Manager's report.
A couple of items I did want to report on tonight. What has become almost an annual event, Narragansett, United Water, and South Kingstown, South Shore, and Middlebridge systems have imposed an outdoor water restriction. We've gone effective with the effective as of the beginning of July with an imposing of alternating system. So odd number, street number addresses would be able to water on odd day of the week. Those with even numbers would be able to go on even days of the week. So if your house is 6 Baden Lane, then you can, on an even day, you can water your outdoors or wash your car. If you're at 7 Baden Lane, you are to do nothing on that day. This is necessary. I think we've talked about water resources in the past, but as our region continues to grow and the demands, particularly during the 3-month period of July, August, and September, have seen major demands. As for instance, during the month of January in the South Shore system, we use in the area of 300,000 to 400,000 gallons for the day. Week of the 4th of July, any given day, will be at about 1.2 to 1.3 million. So it's incumbent on us to ensure that we have proper supply to work regionally. We wanted to have the same regulations in place as Narragansett and for United Water. The only water systems that are excluded would be the Kingston Water District, and obviously there's no restrictions on private wells. But this is something that's necessary for the community's better interest, particularly in terms of being able to continue to provide quality water service to the community. The second item I wanted to report on is I've provided a memo to the council on the July 3rd packet dealing with the elderly exemption program for the 2014-15 year. The program will have 191 participants to date. And when I say to date, the councils in the past and this council has authorized staff to continue to take applications in were people eligible for the program, even though they missed the March 15th deadline for participation in the program. Of the 191 applicants that are participating in the program, we'll be exempting or abating property tax levy of $282,000. That's down a couple of $1,000s from what we had in the program for the 2013-14 year. To give you an idea, the average assessment for the participants was $227,000 on their homes. Their gross taxes were about $3,500. The credit averaged $1,475 per participant. So effectively, we reduced the program participants' tax responsibilities by 42%. So it's still a very effective program in terms of dealing with those persons owning property for over 5 years that are residential in nature, that they've owned and are living in those properties. So that's a history on that program for the 14-15 year. And I think that we'll probably, if last year's any example, we'll probably see another $5,000 to $10,000 in program participation. Right now, I think Gene's processing, I think there's 3 applications that have been filed. We haven't determined whether they're eligible yet based on income guidelines. So I think that concludes my report unless council has questions.
Thank you, Steve. Questions for Steve? Jim?
Yes, Steve, it remains one of the great programs, and the council has been very supportive of this every year, most years. Keeping people in their home, nothing more important now that you read about all of the costs for living in any kind of care facilities. Steve, how often do we send out notice of this? Do we send it out once with our tax statement? How do folks find out what the town is offering?
We advertise it locally in the paper. We also send reapplications to each of the existing program participants. We also provide notice through the town's senior services program. At the senior center, we have the applications there as well.
But there's not a little tag in our tax bill that goes out?
No, there isn't anything on the tax bill itself that deals with the program, but we do a fair amount of notification to any of the senior groups that potentially could have participation in the program.
Yeah.
But it's been consistent over the last several years at
Very much so.
around 200 participant level. As Gene's memo indicated, we had 15 new applications this year. Unfortunately, we had several that had property transfers or are no longer living in the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the town solicitor's report. Questions for Mike? Seeing none, we have appointments, and I believe we have one.
I move that we appoint Jessica Wood to the Economic Development Committee. She would be replaced, there's one vacancy which term expires on March 2017.
Group second. I think everyone was quite impressed, so I'll make a group second.
A group second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Ready to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. She was definitely a great candidate.
She was.
Next item on the agenda is new business. This is a resolution authorizing an award of contract to Brewster Thornton Group Architects, 150 Chestnut Street, Providence, Rhode Island, for architectural and engineering design services for the Community Recreation Center project, in accordance with specifications in the RFP for a 3-phase project implementation with pricing as bid in a total amount not to exceed $392,450, including a contingency of $18,000. Phase 1, the preliminary design and construction cost, $76,900. Phase 2 is $228,570. Phase 3, $68,980, and $18,000 for the per diem inspection and contingency, with a total of $392,450. And is further authorizing the town manager to execute contracts for each phase as warranted, as further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the town manager dated July 7th, 2014, and entitled Bid Recommendation, Recreation Center Architectural Design Services. Steve?
The town council's adopted capital improvement program has, over the past 10 years, included a community recreation center plan. Going back to 2004, it was termed a community gym. As we've gone forward and demands for indoor recreational space have increased, we have looked at a project which would be of a broader dimension that would be more than just a gymnasium, but would include lockers, as well as ancillary administrative space that would be necessary to run the programs, as well as space that may be available to deal with different population groups that are looking for athletic activities for indoor purposes. The capital budget forecasts a $5 million program for the development of the Community Recreation Center. The planned location is on the former Dominic Savio property, and it would be adjacent to the town's senior center and just to the north of the senior center. The funds that are currently available are $3.15 million that have been approved in previous bond issues, and $850,000 has been authorized by the council for recreation impact fees. That would bring it to a $4 million availability. The council requested and General Assembly has approved the placement of a $1 million referendum on the November ballot to bring total funding available for the project to $5 million. In advance of that bond referendum, it's proposed to hire the necessary architectural and engineering services to be able to complete preliminary design and probable construction costs so that a model can be presented as to what the facility would look like, what service areas it would be providing. It's important for us to get that information out so that the general public understands what the potential uses are of the facility and what they're not. To affect that end, the town council, through the town's recreation commission, has appointed a recreation center planning committee of 7 representatives, representing people from the general community as well as the recreation commission, the school department, and both adult recreational activities and for youth activities. The town staff, in advance of that committee's work, has prepared a request for proposal for the architectural and engineering services. As noted in Terry Murphy's memorandum of July 7th, there were 12 proposals that were submitted by various firms. The town staff met with 4 of the firms that they felt were the most qualified, and they used a standards criteria. They looked at what the company's qualifications and experience were in specifically dealing with the different disciplines, the HVAC, the electricals, the plumbing requirements, who the subs were going to be, as well as looking at the performance records of the firms in terms of talking with clients that had been serviced by those firms. Also, in the interview process to determine which of the firms understood what the project was and how they would work with the community to ensure that the facility that was developed was in fact going to meet what the community's needs were. The recommendation of the town staff was to employ the services of Brewster Thornton as indicated on the agenda this evening. The request for proposal set up documents that would provide the cost distribution in a number of phases so that we could go with phase 1 to get the work completed in advance of November and to be able to get the information out in advance of November. And then we would authorize only if we had appropriate funding available with the passage of the bond issue to be able to go to phase 2. Or the council at that point could decide on how they would want to restructure the program if in fact they wanted to continue to go forward with it. We would hope by the end of August to have phase 1 of the preliminary design and probable construction course. That phase would be completed so that we would then be able to have that available for the council to have final approvals on so that we could get the public information out. The town would provide documentation as far as what the referendum means and what the implications would be as far as property tax associated with debt service. We would expect that the Friends of Recreation group would then also work on behalf of the project to be able to get the information disseminated across the community so that people could go to the polls with it and make an informed decision as to what, whether to support that referendum for the next $1 million. Certainly, there's still an availability of a project at $4 million, but if that's not going to meet the community's needs, the council is going to need to look at that after the referendum is completed. I've reviewed the findings of the committee. I support their recommendation that the council award the contract as presented in Terry's memo. She is here to answer any questions, and Terry Lynch is also here tonight if the council has any questions. Again, what we're trying to do is to ensure that the community's needs are reflective of both municipal youth programs, education in terms of interscholastics, as well as adult and senior recreational activities that could be planned for use in this facility. So with that, I'll answer any questions, or if there's questions of staff, certainly they're prepared to address them for you this evening.
Steve, could you just let the public know who's on that planning committee? I have the names if you need them.
Planning committee will be Joanne Blessing, who's the chair of the Recreation Commission, Will Litton, who's vice chair of the Recreation Commission, Kevin Jackson and Terry Lynch will be representing the school program. Ray Carr will be representing senior programs. Dr. Fazio would be representing the adult and youth program, and David Palazzetti is the youth representative for the South. And these, the last three are not related to either any of the municipal appointments. These would be persons that are involved in each of those type of recreational athletic programs that have volunteered to work with the Recreation Commission. So we hope that once we can come up with a design, have them review that, and the council review it, we can come up with what the product is that this group and the council believes is in the community's best interest, and to then get that information out to the public. Town staff that will be involved in the project will continue to be both Trish Sunderland, our finance director, John Schock and his office has been assisting, as well as Terry. My office will continue to be involved in terms of coordinating the various phases here, and in terms of negotiating of the final contracts with each for each of the different phases. So it certainly will be a team approach, and certainly one that we hope the community will be proud of.
Thank you. Questions here at the table for Steve? Carol?
I'd like to hear from the Proposal Review Committee, which I know Terry Murphy was on that, and also Terry Lynch is here as Director of Athletics for the school department. I'd just like to know how the process went about and why you chose this particular firm as opposed to the others, and I think you know a lot more about this than what went into this, because you had quite a few. It looks like you had, what did you have, 12 different bids?
We did. We had 12 proposals that were submitted from firms in-state and out-of-state. Out of those 12 proposals, the town engineer, Josh Rosen, myself, and Terry Lynch reviewed each proposal. We selected 4 finalists for an interview based on the proposals that were submitted. We looked at qualifications, experience, pricing, with obviously a focus on athletic facilities. What we did with the 4 firms that we selected, scheduled an appointment for them to come in. We also had Trish Sunderland, our finance director, as part of the interview committee. We looked at a number of different questions related specifically to their proposals, but also in general, what sets your firm apart, why are you more qualified than another firm, those types of questions to really try to get at whether or not these firms understood what the town was looking for. During the interview process, we were able to glean information about each vendor, particularly in terms of the specialty of athletic facility design. 2 out of the 4 had specialty architecture firms as their sub-consultants, which really appealed to the committee in that we knew we'd get experience in that specialty area. Out of those 2, that was Torado and Brewster Thornton. The committee really felt that Brewster Thornton had a better handle on what the needs of the town were, just on the initial RFP. In our conversations with the Brewster Thornton representatives, they detailed out basically what they would do with the Phase 1 process. It's a team approach. The specialty firm would be involved in every planning meeting, would work with the planning committee in understanding what our programming needs are currently, and also take into consideration what the future holds for recreational and athletic programming. So we really felt that because of that piece of it, and obviously really a very critical piece, that set Brewster Thornton apart. And that was, in a nutshell, what the selection process was.
And Terry, you seem to be particularly happy, at least the group that interviewed, with S3 Design. Can you tell us
Yes.
something about them?
Yes, they are a firm out of Massachusetts. They specialize specifically in athletic facility design. They've had a great deal of experience, particularly with college facilities and campus design recreational facilities, one being locally the URI facility, the Rec and Wellness Center on campus of the former Roger Williams Dining Hall at URI. They've also done projects out of state as far away as Florida. St. Leo's University, I think, is one example of, they do a lot of master planning. So they look at a larger picture for a comprehensive design. That also appealed to us because of the nature of the location with a middle school, a senior center, connection to athletic facilities or fields already there, not to mention the walking connection up to South County Commons. So that has a campus atmosphere, if you will. So
Good point.
they can take a look at that in a unique way. I think they have that
Yeah.
experience.
Other questions here at the table? Okay, this is something that we've had here at the town council table for many, many years, and we're looking for, hopefully, for it to get passed in the bond on November 4th. And opening 2016, Steve, if it moves forward?
Well, it should be within the 16-17 year that would be available. It would be constructed in 15-16. But, so I would think probably sometime in the latter part of 2016, if all went according to plan.
Carol?
I just wanted to ask Terry Lynch a question, since you made the trek, right?
Yeah, thanks.
I just wanted to hear from you on the choice of firms. Do you feel this particular firm will
Yes.
meet the needs of the
Without
school
question.
department?
I think in our estimation and in our opinion, the S3 group kind of put them over the top with all of the previous work and construction that they have done and their familiarity with these types of buildings that we're talking about building. I think that the way they presented the background work that we did to investigate what they did and what they've done, and the way that they will work with us, and some of the facilities that they've built kind of put them over the top.
And it meets the needs for the high school, I would assume.
It does. And again, yes, it meets the needs for the high school along with what we need in the community. But yes, the high school will be a part of that.
Very good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Please come to the microphone. Just state your name for the record, Mr. Veely.
Mr. Veely, I just have a few questions and concerns about this project. I understand it's the project on Broad Rock Road by the Senior Center. Two bonds have been approved for this project already, about $2 million apiece, one $2 million, one $1.2 million, and then some town funding, I guess. So $4 million total. And there's another $1 million bond, I understand, for November for the ballot. The two buildings that are proposed, the way I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, two 25,000 square foot facilities?
No, in fact, that's one of the concerns we have right now, is that there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. The only thing that's ever been talked about is one building of 25,000 square feet. What's been said is that the land area is large enough to be able to accommodate a second building of equal size. But that's not part of what you would be able to get for that $5 million. The other thing, just to correct Joe, the authorization so far is $3,150,000 in bonding authorization. There's, in the capital budget, the council was committing recreation impact fees, dollars that have been collected for homes that have been built in the community for new recreation services of $850,000. So there's $4 million that is in that project.
Right.
The authorizations go back, I think the initial one for bonding authorization goes back to around 2005, and we were looking at doing the project in 2007. The councils, based on recommendations with staff, have delayed the project since 2004. A lot of it became because of the economy.
Right.
And there was no, we did not see any way to be able to maintain the tax base and not to load new taxes on, where in fact that we were going to be doing it during that type of an economic period. What we're looking at now is that we can look at either using all of the bonding authorization or a portion, because just because you have the bonds authorized, we don't have to spend it. What we could do is we could even have $4 million in authorization for bonds and only borrow $3 million if we used money that was in the town's undesignated fund balance. So there's those type of options that would be available. The other thing that's got to be looked at, in addition to the plans that are being talked about tonight, is what type of an operations program and where would the support come for that? Because that's got to be integrated into the town's budget
Right.
program. So those are things that are still yet to be worked on, but it is $3,150,000 that was available. There was 3 different bonds that were put together that were authorized. One was specifically for school purposes, and the other 2 were municipal. But again, those weren't done when we were estimating the cost at $3 million back in 2004, and those costs certainly wouldn't be realistic today.
Right. So I understand, is it $5 million for one building then?
Yeah, you're looking at probably $150 a square foot on a facility. So when you look at 25,000 square feet, that's what, about $3.75, $3.8 million. Then you've got the ancillary costs of what would go into the building as far as bleachers or,
Right.
or other types of equipment. And you've got a need for parking probably for 100 spaces.
Okay.
The other thing that is important to note is that when we do the planning for that facility, when we purchased the Dominic Savio property, we had an agreement with the diocese that we would allow Prout to be able to construct a field hockey field to the where the buildings, the diocese buildings were, and that they would use common parking with the parking that would service this building. Based on the economy, Prout has not found the dollars to be able to build that. But what eventually is planned is to have the bike path that'll go up to the commons, to have that field hockey, which would also be soccer, all of our field space that currently exists, and the access to Old Mountain Field with
Ball
bike
fields.
paths, senior center, and Broad Rock School. If in fact 10 years from now the town wanted to build an ice rink, wanted to build a pool, wanted whatever it wanted to do for recreational purposes, they wouldn't have to look for new lands. It would all be at one location to consolidate things. That's what the overall plan was when we purchased the Savio property, and we authorized constructions on both the senior building and the Broad Rock School, was to try to get things all at one place, as well as our athletic fields. So this is another phase of the overall planning that we've done. And again, a lot of it comes down to the timing. When can you afford to be able to put that in? I will also mention, because I think it's important for people to realize, is that when we put a capital improvement program together and we put new borrowing into place, we look at what the existing borrowing is and the debt that we're paying off. Our plan right now will be able to borrow the money that we're going to use to fix the schools, which is a $6 million program, of which $5 million would be bonding. This project, which would be at about $4.15 million in bonding, and we'd be fixing the Guild of $1 million. Those Guild dollars would be paid for coming out of Guild trust funds. These would come in over the next 5 years, all of those different bond issues. As they came in, we'd be retiring other debt. So the net effect would be we'd be paying less debt in terms of property taxes by the end of the 6-year period than we're currently paying today, even though we were going to incorporate that. And that's why it took us that many years to be able to develop the capital projects in such a way so that the debt service could be accommodated within the existing tax ratio. How much it currently is, I think it's about 42 cents per thousand. It'll stay in that range, and that's in the capital improvement program in the schedules that we have.
All right, so as I understand it, the first bond was about 10 years ago, before the Great Recession,
I
9
don't
years ago.
recall- Yeah, I don't recall whether it was 2004. That's when we started talking about the project. It could have been 2004. I can get that information if you need it.
About 9 or 10 years. So my point is, before the Great Recession, before we've all gone through this awful economic time, when the unemployment rate realistically was 5%, things in the economy have changed dramatically since that first bond. I have two concerns. My first concern is about competition and fairness. I don't think that any town should be providing a service that private tax-paying businesses already provide, and then going into competition. It happens from time to time, and from my standpoint, I just don't think it's fair. So again, we've said that we're not sure what's going to be in there, but if it ultimately is something that competes with a local business that's paying taxes, in my opinion, that's not fair. But my second concern is about affordability. I just illustrated to you my view of the economy before the Great Recession and what it is now. So I'll give you my own snapshot, and I think a lot of other businesses are in my position, small businesses. So in 2006 and 7, I had 36 full-time employees who were working 50 to 60 hours a week, 8.5 months a year. For the rest of the year, we had 6 to 8 full-time employees. I'm down to less than 10 employees now, 40 to 45 hours. And in the winter, there are 2, and I'm 1. The economy still is dragging. I question whether we can afford, even though we're reducing our bonded debt, whether we can afford a $5 million facility. And then add all the associated costs of maintaining and daily operations. I think we need to assess the critical need for this spending, and please explain the logic in a time when so many of our taxpayers are suffering. Thank you.
I would just like to respond with my time on the, excuse me, the town council. With all of the discussions that we've had at this table, there has always been, the philosophy that this will not be in any direct competition with any facility, business in town. And that has been stated at many meetings. I wanted to state it again, and pass that on to the planning committee that will be looking on that, because I know that I have heard that from a concern from other people in town. But rest assured, I don't believe it will be in competition with any businesses. The second point that I'd like to talk about is the need in this community. Sitting on the town council for the years that I've sat here, We've listened to Parks and Recreation with the lack of space in our gyms for even our adult population, and I don't know if you want to speak on that, Terry, but we're really trying to do as much as we can with physical activities for our community, and there's just not enough time, you know, in the schools, you know, the nights that the older men play basketball, all of the facilities that are being used right now. I didn't know if you wanted to speak on that, Terry, but we do. And then Terry Lynch, I didn't know if you wanted to come back to the microphone and speak at what this would do for our community to add, you know, depth and breadth and a physical activity for our schools. So, Terry. And then the last thing, I think, a fiscal component with bringing in money for other teams, possibly renting our facility.
Just very briefly, at many of the capital budget hearings, I've spoken about this, and the manager has as well. One illustration of the need, particularly for indoor gymnasium space, relates directly to our youth athletic programmings, like basketball, like indoor tennis. These programs don't compete with any indoor facility that I'm aware of in terms of youth athletics. We're looking at those types of things, expanding capacity for existing programs, looking at adult programming and senior programming that right now we're not able to establish, but there is a need and a want from community members for additional time for men's basketball or indoor volleyball, dodgeball, any number of indoor sports programming, where we also have that same need with the senior programming component. The senior center is right next door. It's an ideal spot. We're looking at those types of programs that already exist. We've also already modified the senior center so that we had more space because we're expanding our programming. So a lot of that is things that already exist, that the need is there and the want is there from community members. At least that's what we've heard to this point. So that's one item. And in terms of rentals, just like we do with the Guild and with our other indoor facilities, there are opportunities for youth athletic leagues that normally are an outdoor sport to rent indoor facility in the off-season. Again, those are the things that the community has come to the Rec Commission and the department with, that we see as a need, and I'm not thinking in direct competition with any particular facility or business in town.
I think it's important, too, that many of the activities we currently have, whether it's yoga or whether it's dance or whether it's any of those type of programs, we're offering those and have offered those in town services for a number of years, and there's certainly a number of private businesses that operate that have not been impacted on the fact that those programs exist at either the Guild or Peacedale office building or in any of the other buildings that we make use of. And I don't think that there's any intention to try to take those type of services from any of those businesses. We need business in South Kingstown. We certainly are supportive of the businesses. What we're trying to do is to address how do we keep kids active? How do we allow adults to be able to exercise if in fact they want to play basketball or the volleyball? And we have both men and women programs that are at this point not able to expand. Now, if the community feels that there's adequate space, then we'll have to restructure. But at the same time, we have to look at what is the community's needs. The community defines its needs. We've got to determine whether or not, as the council has envisioned them in the capital improvement program, whether they fit what the public's looking for. I think the council has certainly demonstrated, particularly over the past 5 years, that the tax levy increases have been at 1%. They have, while the state average over that same 5-year period has been at 3%. So I think that the town certainly is aware of what the impact of the adverse economic conditions was and has tried to address those types of issues, and we'll continue to. But that's the decisions that need to be reached. What we're trying to do at this point is to get the proper information in place so that people can make an informed decision. That's not to say that they should be voting yes or voting no, but rather to understand what it is that is intended to be accomplished and at what cost.
Any other questions? Paul?
Okay, question. A lot of the programs is a fee for service, right? I mean, if you know,
That's correct.
if you do whatever, so that fee for service can maintain the buildings that the service takes place in.
It would generate back into the program.
Yeah, so that- it's
Just
not
like
like
it
a-
does with the
yeah.
Guild and,
So, and the thing is, so it's not going to be a whole, you're not have to find money because the money is coming in.
we have self-support programs and we have town recreational programs. There is a balance, and you've seen our budget and how it operates, but there is a percentage that is of revenue that comes back into the program.
But I think it's got to be made clear that it will cost tax dollars to be able to operate a portion of that building. Not all of it will be generated based on fees. It will have a cost. It was be an expanded cost of operating recreational programs and its share of what the property tax levy is. But what we need to do is to define what the scope of that project is, then we can show what an operating program will be. There's a necessity, while that building's in operation, to have staffing available at that building, as well as custodial services and operational costs. We will define those in advance of November as to what we project. That'll be a part of what the A&E work will do. They'll define what the building structure would look like, what the building cost would be, and then what an operational fee would be. When we look at the Guild, most of our, the Guild's unique because it's got a trust fund. The trust fund generates enough revenues on a yearly basis at the Guild to be able to pay for the core facility, the electricity, the insurances, the operating costs. What we recover in our program fees is what it really costs us, less the teachers. We give them a portion of what the fees are that are collected. I think they get between 60 and 80% of whatever fee, and the rest goes toward operations. But we would never be able to operate the Guild without property tax support were it not for the trust fund that's in place. And it would be a similar situation here. You would, without trust funds, you would need some type of an operational subsidy coming from a tax-generated source. So that is clear.
Carol?
Terry, tell me about the youth leagues that we have at the Recreation Department. I mean, the basketball for the kids. I mean, they're always scrambling for gym space, are they not? Is it?
Yes, the youth basketball program is our largest youth athletic program with about 750 to 800 participants. We've struggled the last few years to meet the demand of the community to have enough teams, to have enough gym space for sufficient practice time. And we juggle because of the age of the children. We can't slot a 10-year-old team at 9 o'clock at night for practice at a school. So we have a lot of moving parts in terms of setting up appropriate time slots in the school gymnasiums for the youth basketball program. And in turn, we either bump out or put off adult programming during the youth basketball season, the height of the season. So it's definitely a prioritization issue in terms of what we can offer. And the other point I would add is the Recreation Department is kind of limited in expanding any passive programs as well, because we're also using the Guild to still have some of these youth programs in, albeit a small gymnasium, but it's a gymnasium. It would open up an opportunity for us to expand passive programming at the Guild, which is also a demand in the community as well.
We did the analysis last year for the capital budget. 85% of all available gym space between the months of November and March are occupied with that basketball program. So you've only got 15% of the space available, and we're using Prout and any other gym space that we have available. We are trying to limit the use of the Guild because of the liability associated with the structures, the radiators that are in that gym space, so to only the smallest of kids. But again, what we're trying to do is to be able to provide appropriate space where we can be able to get additional activities. And on this facility, one of the things we want to look at is how they can subdivide the play space within a building so that we can have multiple teams practicing at the same time with, and still be able to use those spaces. Again, I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had. Once we can complete at least a design feature, I think then we need to start having some informational meetings. I think the comments that Joe makes are very appropriate, and in fact, I'm glad that he's asked them tonight, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there that I'm not looking to convert somebody to say, well, yeah, I'm going to support something I didn't support earlier today. All I want to do is to make sure that they can make an informed decision.
Is there any room for an indoor track? Did we discuss this at all, or is that still on a possibility?
At this point, everything's on the table. We'd like to have the expert look at what we offer currently, and then it ultimately will come down to, prioritization.
I think that would be a good idea if it's possible.
It certainly would be a beneficial component with the senior center across the way, and knowing that people can get out and walk in any weather. Yes.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
And these firms are like, they're not telling you here's what I can give you. We're asking them, what can you give us?
We're providing a profile of what we have currently and where we see the future of the community in terms of wellness and recreation. And then they will come back to us with their best design, and that the planning committee, along with the town staff, will look at it and say, we really need to look at this, and this, and they're willing to obviously work with us. It's a custom approach.
Okay, Meg.
I just have one final
then Jim.
comment. Joe, I appreciate your feedback. I'm happy to hear that you have some concerns about it. I also look at it the other way as a parent, and I know you could probably speak to this as well, having two children that played sports from 6 years old still into college. They play college baseball. I'm a baseball mom, but they did play basketball, and I do remember one of the things that as they were growing up, when I served as treasurer of the Little League, there was no place in town for these kids to have their tryouts, because the official season started March 1st, but the fields couldn't open before that. And so we, at that point, for several years, had to ask many of the parents to belly up to the bar, if you will, and pay additional money so we could rent out URI for a weekend to do the assessments. I do have two children who do go to private facilities here in town. I really don't think it's going to take away from the private businesses. I would certainly hope it wouldn't. And I don't think that's the character of anybody that serves on this council or sits in this room to want to do that. They're two separate issues. But you got kids that want to play, let them play. And you got kids that as they get older want to work out. There's where the private facilities come in hugely. The orthopedic centers, the gyms, the workout rooms, but what this wants to be in terms of a recreational facility for children and families, I'm a happy parent. Get your kid off the computer and put them in a gym. That's.
I agree with that.
Jim?
Thanks. Yeah, I've been here the longest, and we've been looking at this gymnasium situation for years, but we have been steadfast that this would not hurt any private group anywhere. There won't be yoga. There's not going to be a gym with weights. climbing rocks, et cetera, et cetera. This is really meant to be athletic facilities that you can't get at a private indoor facility. And so I think that's one of the major notions that we've got to clear up here in this community. But it's always been clear since I've been on this that we would not compete with private business. So,
Like, these are like the big recreation, the big
exactly.
sports, not the individuals.
exactly.
Go in and
Just
lift
one
weights.
comment, though. We do have a yoga center at Peacedale Office Building now, and have had for several years.
I know, I know.
And I think at the senior center, they offer some yoga too, for the seniors.
Well, Terry, help out here.
There's yoga everywhere.
Yes, we've coexisted in terms of particularly the yoga. This is a very yoga-friendly community. And the senior center as well, actually, there's no charge for most of the programming at the senior center, so it's a different demographic. But we do have we have some art programs, we have yoga, but there's varying levels and interests, and I think that the community has a choice, basically.
Thank you. Other questions? Carol?
I'd like to hear from Terry Lynch to hear what the impact would be on the school system, and who better to hear from for the athletics.
The impact will lessen the burden at the schools. Terry and I have talked a bunch. I get use of facility forms constantly, and I have to refuse some of these groups because we can't fit them. We just don't have the time nor the space to put people in. So it'll take less burden off of me as far as being able to provide other opportunities for other groups to come in. For instance, I have a soccer group that's asked to be in there on Sundays from 12 o'clock to 10 o'clock. They need the space. So we get those requests all the time, and I have to say no because I have to run our programs, with our basketball or whatever sports we have going on. So that's going to be important, that we'll be able to help those other groups that want those facilities, and it'll open up some space for us too. We won't have as many groups having to come into the high school, and we can afford more people because we'll have the space at that facility. And going back to within the town, as director of athletics, but also as the director of physical education, we use Riverbend. We use the bowling alley in our curriculum. So that's not going to change. We have a weight room in the high school, but we offer our kids other avenues, and those avenues have them travel over to Riverbend. So those relationships are not going to change on our part. So I don't think it's going to impact any of the fitness facilities that are within the town.
Do you, just a quick question, and then I'm done. Do you foresee this showcasing our town more because we can get better involvement and
Yes.
diversification of teams through interscholastic?
Yes,
league?
well, I think you guys have known me, and my mantra is, if your gym and your auditorium are beautiful, no one else will care what the rest of your school looks like, because those are facilities that are used 90% of the time. So, yes, we have the second oldest gym in the state of Rhode Island. So for this to be able to be new and to have our kids, it's not going to help my kids. My kids are gone. Your
Right,
kids are
mine
gone.
too. They were
You know,
looking up, right.
it's the younger groups that are, even our kids that are going to be sophomores this year, it's not going to impact them. It's our freshman group that's coming in now that are going to be able to participate in this facility. So yeah, I think to be able to go out there and say, yes, we have a new facility, and we understand the importance of athletics and recreation in the town, I think that's a huge step.
And if we can host tournaments, you're going to get more people into the town, economic dollars. That's
Yep.
what I look at,
Exactly.
supporting local business.
Yep.
I think that could potentially be,
Okay.
Do you think it'll get more kids to sign up for teams, Terry? Do you think this will encourage
At
children?
the high school?
Yes.
I don't know. We're pretty maxed at the high school.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of participation at the high school. And, one of the things that I just hear tonight is, and you asked the question, is there going to be an indoor track? The only part of indoor track at the interscholastic league level at South Kingstown High School are the meets. Our kids have to practice outside constantly. And, the only time that they don't practice outside is when we get snow on the track. If there's no snow on the track, if it's 5 degrees out there, going out there. So I was excited to hear that there may be an indoor track there that we could have our kids, maybe practice there, and we'd work that out. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to help our participation at the high school because our numbers are very good.
And would you plan on using the new facility for interscholastic games,
Yes.
for basketball?
That has been talked about, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else? Volleyball?
Possibly volleyball. Again, this is so in the beginning stages of planning. Yes, we did talk about basketball. I think volleyball would be a possibility. Those would probably be the only ones.
Wrestling?
Wrestling could be a possibility, but you would have a facility now that would be freed up at the high school that you wouldn't have to worry too much about. But yeah, we could host some, when we host tri-meets or quad meets, we could possibly do those over there.
So in all the planning stages of this, we need to make sure that the facility is such that it can accommodate the interscholastic games.
And Terry and I have been on that same page since the conversations have started, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other further comments here at the table? Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve new business item A?
Just one more question. Steve, we're spending Phase 1, right? This is what the actual expenditure will be at this point.
This is the type of a contract that you're not going to change architectural and engineering firms from one phase
Right.
to the other. So when we ask for proposals, we want to see what the overall cost is going to be. But the only one that's going to proceed now is I'll execute Phase 1 only. Phase 2 won't occur without us having discussion and having the proper dollars available, because we're not going to design a building unless we know we're going to have the dollars for it.
Right. Okay. I move approval of new business item 12A.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is new business B. It is a resolution authorizing the amendment of an award of bid originally granted on April 14th, 2014 to Wilco Development Limited Liability Corporation, 300 Jefferson Boulevard, Warwick, Rhode Island, for installation of on-site wastewater treatment system at the town beach in accordance with all bid specifications from an amount not to exceed $91,750 to an amount not to exceed $96,750, and is further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the town manager dated July 8th, 2014, and entitled Bid Amendment, Installation of On-Site Wastewater Treatment System. Steve?
There was two change orders that were necessary, one dealing with the pipeline, having it installed below the frost line so we wouldn't have to drain that system on a yearly basis, as well as a requirement as far as us having to remove more materials than had been anticipated and replaced with a gravel material. Each of those added to the cost in excess of the contingency. What we're asking council to do now at this point is to approve an increase in the overall contract by $5,000. That'll take care of the two change orders that have exceeded the authorization to date, and also provide an additional, I think it's about $1,800, should additional changes be necessary to complete that project.
Thank you, Steve. Can we have a motion, please?
I move approval of new business item 12B.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? Any comments from the public? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. New business C is a resolution authorizing the amendment of an award of contract originally granted on June 13th, 2011, and amended on October 11, 2011, to St. Jean Engineering Limited Liability Corporation, 1145 Middle Road, East Greenwich, Rhode Island, for consulting engineering services to prepare Matunic Shoreline Protection Design Plans and specifications from an amount not to exceed $81,900 to an amount not to exceed $106,900, including a contingency of $5,000, and is further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated July 8, 2014, entitled Matunic Shoreline Protection Engineering Services Contract Amendment.
As noted in John's memorandum, additional engineering work was necessary as a result of the litigation issues that have been ongoing and the need to go back to the Superior Court. There's been several meetings as well as a formal engineering report that needed to be prepared before we went back before Coastal. We're looking at the need right now for the permitting responsibilities of the $20,000 as well as an additional contingency of $5,000. That would put the total A&E work to date associated with getting the approvals through Coastal and the design and the review of the construction documents up to $106,900. I would caution that I'm expecting that there'll be another $60,000 in resident engineering that will be necessary as we go forward with the actual construction next spring. So that will come back to the council at a future time once we have a better idea as to what the scope of that specific engineering responsibilities will be. So I'd ask the council to approve as presented by increasing the amount available by $25,000 to a new total of $106,900.
Could we have a motion, please?
I move approval of new business item 12C.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Before we adjourn, Steve, do we have the date for the August meeting? I believe there's going to be only one meeting in August.
Well,
Yeah, it's on here.
So there's,
I have it.
it is August 12th, and the meeting on August 25th, that second meeting in the month of August, has been canceled. And August 11th is VJ Day, so the town council will meet that night on Tuesday, August 12th, and the 25th meeting will be canceled, and then we'll reconvene. Every August, we only have one meeting. With that said, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and we're officially adjourned at 8:53.